Welcome to the Parentline Podcast, where we discuss the joys and challenges of modern parenting and explore how we as parents can give our children the best start in life.
Hello and welcome to the Parentline Podcast. I'm Ellen and I'm Policy Officer at Children Northern Ireland. Today's podcast is going to be about building resilience, and I'm delighted to welcome Ciaran. Hi, Ciaran.
It's a pleasure, Alan. I've just realised, Alan, I'm wearing the same shirt as the last time we did this. People will think I've only got one shirt.
Don't worry about it. Could you maybe tell the listeners just a little bit about yourself again?
Sure. Alan, I'm a social worker and I work for Children in Northern Ireland as a learning and development manager. Mm-hmm. So I deliver a lot of training to childcare, youth work practitioners and social workers on things like child protection and associated topics.
Yeah. So today's topic is actually about building resilience. And to be honest, when I have heard about building resilience, it's been a new concept for me, and also it seems to be only professionals that are talking about it. Can you tell me what resilience is?
I think that's a really good point. I think as professionals we use jargon that other people find exclusive, and in simple terms, resilience is about being able to cope. It's about what makes some person able to cope with a situation and someone else finds that really difficult and overwhelming. So, if I encounter a crisis, what enables me to cope with that crisis, that's my resilience. If someone else folds into that crisis, then maybe they lack resilience in that area. So simply it's about ability to cope, ability to bounce back. Some people will talk about.
Yeah, it makes it so much easier talking about it like that. Can you tell me, why is building resilience then, or being able to cope, so important?
I think it's very important. I think sometimes as parents we want to protect our children and we want to look after our children, and sometimes by being protective or overprotective we deny them exposure to challenges, and we deny them the opportunity to take risks, and we can disadvantage them because life is challenging, and our children face a lot of stresses in life. In school they face exams, they face peer pressures. When they leave school, there's the job market, there's economic pressures, there are relationship pressures. So it's very important that we raise our children with the capacity to cope and the capacity to problem solve and the capacity to be, independent and interdependent. And so resilience and building resilience as parents is really important.
In terms of the family situation, I mean, what kind of things could impact on building resilience in children and young people?
Oh, there are lots of things that can impact on resilience. Parents who are disconnected from their children for different reasons, maybe substance use, maybe stresses, maybe coping with their own traumas, maybe coping with mental ill health. And that's not to say that parents with mental illness aren't good parents, but anything that gets in the way of that relationship and that attachment to the child can lead that child to grow up with maybe less resilience than they could have had. There's a lot of talk at the minute within our professional circles about adverse childhood experiences. So things that happen in childhood that could traumatize that child or lead to trauma in that child and undermine their resilience. And they're generally things to do with the relationship between parent and child, or things to do with the environment that can undermine that child's capacity to cope.
Well, then what can parents do then to improve the resilience of their child? If all these different things are sort of happening within the family unit, what can they do to try and build that resilience and sort of protect that child?
There's lots of things. Well, first thing to say is that we can be overprotective, and that can undermine a child's resilience. We want to enable our child to deal with the stress and challenges of life in a way where they feel empowered and enabled to cope. And sometimes we will overprotect. So if we have too high expectations for our children, and we punish them for not achieving those expectations, or are critical of them for not achieving those expectations, we can undermine resilience. Similarly, if we're overprotective and deny them challenges and deny them risk-taking, we can undermine resilience. There's lots of things that we can do as caregivers, as parents, and they tend to be relational things. It's about, how do I relate to my child? Do I maintain eye contact, or am I focused on the infinity scrolling on my phone? Am I spending lots of time in work at the expense of my relationship with my child? Do I listen to my child when they tell me stories and tales? Do I respond to them? Do I show forgiveness?
Right.
Do I maintain a relationship with them even when they're being challenging and causing me stress? Do I focus on my needs, or do I use that as an opportunity to talk to the child about how to deal with stress? Do I reward my child for the outcome of what they do, or do I reward them for the behaviors I see that are really valuable? So saying to a child, I love the way you're generous with your siblings, with your toys. I love how patient you were when you built that Lego building, not what an amazing Lego building.
Oh, really? That's really interesting.
So we're teaching our children that they are valuable, that they can problem solve. We're teaching them to plan. We're teaching them that tomorrow the sun is going to come up, teach them to be optimistic. We're teaching them that we are good role models and we are reliable and we are available to them, and no matter what difficulties they encounter in life, we will be there for them. Yeah. We're teaching them that they belong. We're teaching them how to relate to adults. So there's lots of things we can do as parents and caregivers to instill resilience in our children. But a lot of it tends to be about using our relationship and doing activities, spending time with our children, and using those activities and those opportunities, even the difficult opportunities, as a chance to learn and a chance to grow and develop. And
can children, young people build resilience outside the family unit?
Yeah.
And because I know, especially in terms of teenagers and stuff, where they don't want to communicate as much with parents.
Yeah. There's a lot of research on resilience, and one of the things that always, I suppose, surprises me is how important it is to have at least one positive person in a child's life.
Okay.
Just one person can make a difference. So someone who is available to that child, who is a good role model, who accepts that child for who they are, who praises what that child does. The presence of one available, attentive, responsive person in a child's life can make such a difference. And that person doesn't necessarily need to be within the family.
Okay.
It could be the scout leader, it could be a football coach, it could be the school crossing guard. There are lots of opportunities outside the family, and building resilience can be associated and should be associated with doing activities that may be outside the family.
Yeah.
One of the challenges, I think, sometimes for parents is when children do get older and they begin to orientate more towards their peers.
Yes.
Then the relationship with the parents can struggle a bit, and we can sometimes start to blame our children for not being the cute little things that we used to care for. And I think that we need to be forgiving and understanding and supportive, and use those opportunities and those challenges that our children face as outside of the family as opportunities to learn as well. And if our children are orientating towards their peers, it's really important we maintain our relationship with them and don't drive them away or punish them for doing things that we may find unacceptable, but use those as an opportunity to have a conversation and talk and learn about growing up.
That's the tough thing, I think, is as a parent, when your child goes to do more things and for whatever reason they're moving out of the household and stuff, so that's really a challenge for most parents.
It is.
Is there a time when it's too late to build resilience?
No, I personally think we build resilience through our lives, but the foundations are set in the early years, and sometimes pre-birth resilience begins, because nature is part of resilience. The capacity to be resilient is part, but the nurture bit is really important in building resilience in children, and I think it continues in adulthood. I mean, even as an adult, I encounter difficulties in my life that I learn from, and if I learn from them, my resilience can be enhanced. So the next time I have that difficulty, I'm better able to deal with it. But the foundations for being able to cope and learn from coping are set in the early years.
Okay, so if a parent listening to this wanted to ensure they were building resilience in their child, what would you suggest they do now from this moment they're listening to it?
Talk to your child.
Okay.
Talk to your child. Listen to your child. They may be talking a lot of rubbish. They may be saying things that you find challenging, but be non-judgmental. Explore their point of view. Praise them for talking to you. Keep that attachment, keep that relationship, because as they move into their teenage years, that attachment to you may be put under stress, and it's really important it is sustained, that they don't form attachments with people outside the family that pull them away from the family.
Yeah.
But your relationship with them is an anchor and a foundation for their growth into adulthood. So, they may be challenging you, they may be difficult, they may be gruff, but you're there for them. You are a presence in their life that they are attached to and that they can come to if necessary. And that will enhance their resilience, that they know you are available, they know they belong to you, they love themselves because you have loved them and you have shown that they are loved. Because life, as children get older, can become difficult, and the danger is we push our children away, because we find them challenging, and who are we pushing them to? And I think, they may try to push us away, but it's very important we keep that connection, because our connection to them will enhance their resilience.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true, because especially with teenage boys, sometimes I feel as if, they want to go off and do their own thing. And I have to say, at some points, I feel, oh no, can you just stay in the house?
Yeah.
I'm concerned about you doing that.
Yeah.
But as a parent, it's really hard to let go of that.
Of course, as I had with my own children, and they get to 14, 15, and they're starting to explore life outside the home, and they're doing things you don't know anything about. But it's important we have those conversations about what they're doing, so that we are part of their life, even though we're not controlling their life. And they get to 16 and they're staying out a little bit later, and you have to trust that they're able to manage the risk in their lives and cope with the difficulties, because you have taught them how to do that, and you have instilled confidence in them, and you're there for them if necessary. When they get to 18, maybe you hope they don't come home. So it's like, you get a night off. But it is that, you can trust. I worry that my children are away from home, but I trust that they are resilient, because as when they were younger, hopefully I built resilience, and I know if they get into difficulty, even though they're now sort of young adults, I know that I am there for them if they need me. And children will try us, and they will do challenging things, but we have to be a presence for them, because our presence adds to their resilience. We are a resource for them.
Can I ask if what would be the consequences going into adulthood if we didn't build resilience in our children, young people? What could be the consequences for them?
Well, the consequences could be that they are socially isolated, that they find it difficult to cope, that crises have an enormity that they wouldn't have if they were more resilient. So, I mean, for example, imagine falling in love for the first time, how wonderful it is, how amazing it is. And then you get dumped, and how heartbreaking that is.
Yeah.
Well, the child who is resilient will experience that as heartbreaking, but will know that tomorrow is another day, and will know that they are loved, and they care for themselves, and they have people at home who will be there for them, and they know that they can learn from this experience.
Yeah.
But the child who is not resilient, being dumped may reinforce everything they feel about themselves and everything they've been told about themselves, that they are not worthy, that they can't cope, that it's their fault. So they take responsibility for the pain, and they take responsibility for the other person's behaviour relative to them. So the resilient person is more able to cope, more able to bounce back, more able to move on, more able to learn from that challenge and that difficulty. The child who lacks resilience will feel the stress and feel the challenges a lot more. So building those foundations in early years can have a lifelong benefit to our children. And as a parent, as I hand over responsibility to adulthood to my child, it's reassuring for me to know that my children hopefully have a foundation that will help them cope with the trials and tribulations of life, and that I still have a part to play in their life as they move into adulthood, because because they belong to me, and I belong to them.
Yeah. That has been really helpful. Thank you so much, Ciaran, for that. So can you maybe explain or give us a little bit more detail on how important self-awareness is when you're parenting, and if you're trying to build resilience in your child? Because I know I have to say that I have grown as a parent as our boys have got older. But when I first started in the parenting journey, I would have been very reactive to some things. So can you maybe tell us about self-awareness as
I think
parent?
self-awareness is fundamental. Insight into oneself is fundamental.
Yeah.
And to use a professional term, critical consciousness is what we preach. That's sort of being aware. So, you know, if I know I have a bad day at work, do I want to take those feelings home to my family, or do I go to the gym for an hour to sort of get those off my chest? And that's self-awareness. I'm not exporting or importing my feelings into my family. I'm doing something about it before I go home. So self-awareness is really important. And I mean, I hope your audience doesn't take this the wrong way, but if we all think of ourselves as tools, so we are a tool in the relationships we have. So I need to be familiar with the strengths and weaknesses of that tool. So what makes me strong? What makes me weak? As a tool, and a lot of us, you know, our strengths and weaknesses have their origins in our childhood. So being aware of where we come from is really important as parents, because sometimes I find when we get angry and irritated with our children, if we step back and think about why we're angry and why we're irritated, often we are acting out feelings and that we had in our childhood. You know, fear of rejection, fear of not being attended to, fear of not being listened to, and those are things we had as children. So we get angry with our children because of feelings we had as children. So being self-aware is very important. I think it's interesting sometimes to get people to think about someone in their life who was a hero for them. Someone. You know, it could be a superhero, you know, an animated character, or it could be someone real, you know, a teacher, a grandparent, a sibling, and to think about what characteristics that person had that they valued, and the impact of those characteristics on me. So, you know, my father was a big hero to me, my grandfather, my mother. I mean, all of those were big heroes in my life, and they had characteristics, and they behaved in ways that had a positive impact on me. So, as a parent, when I look back at those people who influenced me and I look at how they behaved and how they made me feel, I would hope that I'm able to replicate those behaviours with my children and make my children feel the same way I felt. Similarly, if there were people in my life who had a negative impact on me, how did they make me feel, and can I avoid those with my children? You know, when we're thinking about resilience, sometimes it's useful to think about 3 questions. You know, what am I? You know, so am I a person who loves themselves and is loved by others? Am I someone who copes? Am I someone who is strong? And what do I have? You know, so I have in my life people who care for me and people I care for. I have strengths and I have weaknesses, and this is what I'm doing about my weaknesses. And then what can I do? You know, so if I have struggles, if I have challenges, you know, what can I do? Who can I go to? You know, what has worked for me before? And I think as a parent, if I say, you know, I am this, I have this, I can do this, then it can create some insights into what we're good at, what we need to do better, where our strengths lie. It can introduce a positivity that maybe we don't have, because as parents we often feel guilty and self-critical all the time. But those 3 questions are always good to ask of our children as well, you know. So, you know, saying to our child, you know, if you say I am, what comes after that? If you say I have, what comes after that? If you say I can, what comes after that? And it can give an insight about what our children think about their resilience. You know, do they feel good about themselves? Do they feel confident? Do they feel capable? Or are they telling us some things that we need to do something about?
And should we actually ask them those questions? Should we have the conversation, and should we talk about resilience then? You know.
Well, I wouldn't use the word resilience with my children, but I would talk about with them. Well, for example, I would if they came to me with things they did that day. So your son was out cycling, you know, and you have a conversation in the evening, and you say, so how did that go? Who did you meet? What did you do? You know, and from that we can draw out the strengths, the things that they did well, the things that they struggle with, and we can praise them for the behaviours that we find attractive and fit with our family values. So we can use those opportunities, positive and challenging, to build resilience in our children. But it's all about communicating, and it's all about taking the time to communicate, and it's all about doing things with our children
And what if a parent does feel stressed and, things are getting on top of them? There's so much happening in the family. What can they do so that they don't have a negative impact on their child?
I think when we're stressed out, sometimes we can start to play the games that we learned in our childhood.
Yeah.
So we can withdraw. And, if you've got 2-year-old or 3-year-old in the house and you're stressed out and you withdraw, what are you communicating to that 3-year-old about how important they are?
Yeah.
If you're a stressed out parent and you're acting your stress out and you're being angry and loud and you're slamming the doors and you're throwing the pots about the place, what are you communicating to the children in the house? Not just about how you manage stress, but also how they're valued. If that child feels scared, are they going to come and talk to you because you get angry?
Yeah.
If you withdraw because you're stressed out, is that child going to come and talk to you, or are they going to avoid you because they're afraid or they don't know how to talk to you? So we need to think as parents the impact of our stressed behaviours on the people around us. And I think sometimes when we are stressed, we act out some of the behaviours we learned as children. Or sometimes when we're stressed, we become very egocentric. We turn inwards rather than think about the people around us. So I think it's being self-aware as parents about how we impact on other people. And if our stress levels get to the point where we are feeling overwhelmed and are finding it difficult to cope, there are resources out there we can use. I mean, Parentline, for example, is a really useful resource. So there are resources out there that people can use, and the resilient person will use their networks. They will talk to people. They will seek support from other people. So if I ask myself the question, I have people in my life who care for me. Who are those people?
Okay.
And who can I go to if I'm feeling stressed?
Yeah. So that is actually a useful way of building resilience, of connecting and talking, and obviously phoning Parentline to build resilience in yourself and your children then.
Yeah. If I sit down and I go, right, if I had a difficulty in my life, who can I go to?
Yeah.
It'll give me an idea of my networks and who I can go to, who I can seek support. Is it the neighbour? Is it, the person across the street? Is it my family members? Is it my siblings? So who's in my immediate circle that I can go to? And if they're not available, is there another circle of people that I could go to?
Yeah.
And if I was in crisis, is there another circle of people I can go to that may be social services, the police, Parentline? So if I map out those relationships, I can get an idea of how resilient my network is, and therefore am I resilient within that network?
Yeah.
And we can do the same thing with our children. We can sit down with our child and say, look, if you're feeling difficult, if they're feeling you have difficulties, if there are things going wrong in your life, who is in your immediate circle that you can go to? And if they're not available or you feel unable to talk to them, who's in your sort of intermediate circle?
And I suppose that would actually change as your child grows as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And related to a conversation we had a while ago about the online world, with children, sometimes the people in those circles are people in the online world. And, that as parents can give us the opportunity to talk to our children about the people they relate to who we don't know, who are remote from our children, but who our children might have very close relationships with in the online world.
Well, thank you so much, Ciaran. That was really insightful, and I hope our listeners have found it useful as well. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
If you're feeling stressed as a parent, or you want more information on building resilience, you can phone Parentline on 0808 8020 400.